you're going home. You feel like you're in a big accepting family when you're here.
So what makes Unity Fellowship different from other churches in Owensboro is their focus on making sure that everyone feels welcomed and accepted with no conditions. They're accepting of the LGBTQ plus community, of
Is our video running yet?
People from different backgrounds and cultures.
Yep.
And this
Blue
is what
roll
really
has started.
led me to joining Unity Fellowship. And I also feel like many churches focus
Hey,
on
Gene, you
the
do the first
individual,
welcome this morning.
but
Okay.
we are actually meant to be in relationship with others.
And
The concept of
is
Ubuntu,
focused
that
on
if
your
one person is
individual.
oppressed, that all people are oppressed. And I feel like Pastor
was
Bob,
bleeding in a little.
in his sermons, he
You're
really
fine.
focuses on
And no scripture
systemic
today, right?
injustices
Correct.
and
Okay.
oppression, and that God is on the side of the oppressed.
Well, after many years of being out of the church, we came to a point where we were ready to find a church.
You want to lead
but
the
I in particular knew that
affirmation
I no longer
right
wanted
after
part of
prayer?
what I had experienced
Sure.
as a younger person. My soul and spirit
Can you
just
see it on your end okay?
no
No, I
longer
cannot.
aligned with what I was being taught
Well,
about
that
myself.
might make it more
So
difficult.
Yeah, I mean, if they
left
can
the church for
project
many
it.
years, and then as a couple years later, we decided we wanted to return to a church. So I knew part of that had to be a church that was totally accepting and that not just welcome to come to the
It's
door,
normally
but before we
projected, so I
participate
can read it
in
from
our-
its
our
slide.
And if you can see it enough to read it from there, that's
And,
fine.
So
Okay.
we began to visit churches, and we
Okay,
visited
good.
Unity Fellowship a while back, and felt like we had made a discovery in a church home.
And we also like this church because it's a teaching church. Every Sunday we have the opportunity after the service, or even sometimes during it, if we have questions and we're not sure of what he's talking about, or if we have questions as to the sermon that he's preaching, that we're allowed to do that. And it's something that I've never had in a church. And it's been very enlightening, and I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned about a lot of things, actually. And above and beyond anything else, I know that I'm loved. I know that Scott's loved, and I know that we're loved together.
And so it's not just like going to mass at a big church and you just go in, hear the thing, get up and leave. Here you actually are charged with asking yourself, what does it mean? And the membership is small enough we can all interact during the sermon as well as after the sermon. So we can ask each other questions. You learn from other people with their comments or their questions about whatever we're discussing that week or what was discussed the week before or whatever. And unlike a large church where you just know the people from sight, you actually know the people here. Whether they are active in doing something or they're just here every week and they participate in how are you doing and stuff like that, or they tell you how somebody else that they've talked to that you haven't seen is doing. So it's like a very large, it's not just a church family, it's a large family.
Just because you came from a Baptist background or a Pentecostal background or a Catholic background doesn't mean you're not welcome. Unity will surprises a lot of people because everyone is accepted. You will feel comfortable. You won't feel out of place. You won't feel judged. You'll feel like you belong.
folks. This is Pastor Bob coming to you from Unity Fellowship. You may be really sick of church. You may have given up on church a long time ago, and maybe you're not even looking for a place. But I want to invite you to a faith community where you'll be safe, where you can be accepted for who you are. Always, for whoever you are right now on your faith journey. Check us out on Facebook Live. Check us out on Zoom. I think you'll find a place that you're safe, a place that you'll be accepted, a place that you'll feel comfortable.
What makes Unity Fellowship different from other churches in Owensboro is their focus on making sure that everyone feels welcomed and accepted with no conditions. They're accepting of the LGBTQ plus community, of different people from different backgrounds and cultures, and this is what really led me to joining Unity Fellowship. This community, at its heart, is open to everyone, and even if you are on the fence and you might disagree, we are still open to having that dialogue and that discussion that fosters growth and understanding. So I feel like the people who come to Unity Fellowship are so open and loving that even if you didn't agree with something that the church promotes, that you're still able to express that and not be judged.
Good morning and welcome to Unity Fellowship. My name is Gator and I'm the associate pastor. And I want to offer a huge, warm welcome again to everyone. This is a safe and affirming space where you can bring your whole self to interact, engage, take part in fellowship, and worship with us. I also want to introduce our senior pastor, Bob Coons, and let him offer a word of welcome.
Thank you, Pastor G. So glad that you all have found us wherever in the world you're tuning in from, or if you're there on site. We're glad that you're with us today. And I want to echo what Pastor G said. This is a safe place. Every molecule of your being is safe and affirmed here at Unity Fellowship. So welcome. Let's get started this morning. We're going to start with a video. Our first video this morning is Callum Scott, and the song is No Matter What. we share any news, joys, and concerns that you might have. Uh, I see several people joining us on Facebook this morning that I've not seen before. Maybe you've been there, but want to welcome all of you who are joining us today, no matter where you are. Um, and if you've got something to share, any news, joys, or concerns, please do so. If you are on Facebook, you'll have to put it in the chat. And someone was asking on Facebook just a moment ago about the videos. Um, we will post the video links so that you can watch the videos as there they are. I see them showing up now. But you can click on those at your leisure, or if you wait till the next one is playing, you can watch it as we're watching it here on Zoom or in person. So, news, joys, or concerns, anyone? Just a reminder for those who are on site, if you'll wave a hand, we'll get a microphone to you so that everyone can hear you. And if you're on Zoom, you can unmute. And on Facebook, please put something in the chat.
Yeah, I got a. This is Jacob. I got a joy. My grandma, uh, she went through radiation, and she just did her last treatment, and she's handling it good and everything like that.
Awesome. Awesome.
Bob, I just want to give a great big, great big joy for last Sunday and the awesome attendance at Pride. From some of the conversations I've had, it was the best one Owensboro's ever had.
Great. Thank you for that. I was only able to be there for a few minutes, but it was pretty awesome, and especially for me because I've always been inside of the crowd, and this was the first time that I came in from outside, and so I rounded the corner and saw the activities. It was pretty encouraging to see all the people, all the cars. And then to walk in and experience it with people as someone coming into it, it was very cool.
Mhm.
Someone else?
Bob, I just want to remember all the people, particularly in the United States, that as Independence Day arrives, in many ways they're not still free.
Yeah.
And want to keep my heart and mind and spirit with them in the midst of the fireworks, and keep fighting. We all keep fighting for justice and equality.
Thank you. Good reminder to us that even though we claim to be a free nation, there are a lot of people who do not experience that freedom. Anyone else?
I will remind folks, Bob, that if you don't want to publicly share your prayer concern, you can always personally message myself or Bob. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, absolutely. We want you to feel safe, and whatever it takes for you to feel safe, please do so. You can remain anonymous if that's what it takes for you to feel safe in this space. And at the same time, we'd love to get to know you. So as you feel safe, feel free to share yourself as well.
Bob,
Any other?
give us a Debbie update.
She's had a good week this week. She had doctor's appointments and physical therapy appointments all week long. The doctor in Nashville, her primary cancer doctor, is in agreement that we're going to hold off on any kind of treatments for now and just let her recover from the stroke. So doing well, getting a little bit stronger every day. Still needs assistance around the house to do things, but getting better, and she's moving towards independence.
Good.
Anyone else? Um, I won't say the name in case you don't want to be recognized on Facebook, but we have a Facebook follower who said, yes, thank you for so much for having the event, Pride event last week. So glad we have somewhere to go and come together, especially with all the hate still going on in Owensboro and nationwide towards LGBTQIA. Thank you for that comment. That's all I see online. Anyone else? Let's pray together. Pastor G, would you lead our prayer?
Of course. God, number one, we thank you for a Sunday time to get back together, whether we're virtual or in person. We give you praise for all the great things that are happening in our lives, some small, some humongous, some even unknown. We also ask that you be with those who've raised prayer concerns this morning and be with them through the valleys they're enduring, fear, anxiety, illness. Walk with them, give them strength and courage. In addition, center our hearts and minds this morning on the reflections that Bob and I share on last week's incredible Pride Sunday. Open our hearts and minds again to understand your love is radically inclusive, that welcomes all and shuns none. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Let's say our affirmation of togetherness. If you would, this is a reminder of who we are and what we're about. We say this together every Sunday. We gather in oneness together. We praise and worship God together. We proclaim God together. We welcome and affirm all persons in God's love together. And we seek to live for God with every breath and heartbeat together. We would invite you to join our contact list. You can do that by texting the word ADD, ADD, to 270-201-5022. Every Sunday morning, about 9 o'clock, you'll get a text with the topic for the day, as well as links where you can join us. When you text that, you'll get a form back, and we'll ask for name and other information. Share as much as you feel like. Please at least give us a name so that we know who you are. But just texting the word add will get you on our contact list either way. So hopefully you'll do that. If you'd like to support this ministry, there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. We're working on some other options as well. But for now, you can, well, I don't see the information there. You can click on the donate button that you can find on our webpage. If you're there in person today, you can drop it off in one of the two offering plates at each of the doors as you exit. If you'd like to mail it, you can do that by sending it to P.O. Box 1401 in Owensboro, 42302. Those are the primary ways that you can support this ministry. We appreciate every gift. We do not put any expectations on you. We never will pressure you to give. But if you've got the ability to help us out and support this ministry and all that this ministry does, we would love to have one of your gifts if you could donate. I have one more video for us this morning before we launch into our discussion time. This is Elton John, and the title is Believe. So this morning, we're going to spend a little time, Pastor G and I, talking about pride, uh, some of our personal reflections and pastoral reflections. As a pastor, what is our thoughts about pride? But I want to begin with our breakout question for you. What comes to your mind when you think of pride? Again, if you are in person, please wave a hand so we can get a microphone to you. If you're on Zoom, you can unmute and we will hear you. If you are joining us on Facebook, put something in the chat and we'll read it for those of us who are not. Anybody? What comes to your mind when you hear the word pride, or you think of pride, or you think of pride celebrations? Just your thoughts.
Hey, Pastor Bob, it's Chrissy.
Hey, Chrissy.
Okay, this was my first Pride this year. Oh my goodness. For me personally, it's all part of the whole civil rights movement, and it's about not being ashamed of who I am.
To your mouth,
Good.
closer to your mouth, Chrissy.
It's about the civil rights movement for me, and it's all about not being ashamed of who I am.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that pride is the opposite of shame, and it helps to counter the way that culture has tried to shame people for who they are.
Yeah, acceptance and being able to be who you are with everyone around you without fear of repercussions.
Yeah. By the way, that was Ethan that gave that comment a little while ago about thanking us for providing that place this year for the Pride picnic, and he gave permission to use his name. So, thank you, Ethan, for that.
When I've reflected back on it, I feel very similar to what everyone shares so far. But and also being out on that back lot with all the different people, that felt like the church to me,
Yeah,
much more so than the sanctuary. Just the love, the respect, the dignity that people were given that maybe they don't get off of that back lot
yeah,
was powerful.
it was. It was. I like the way that you said that felt like church, felt like community, it felt like
Yeah.
belonging. Anyone else? What comes to your mind when you
To me,
think
Bob,
of pride?
pride means something you're proud of. You're joyful for being that, whatever you are, you know. And to be that means that you are happy at being there. So that's what it means to me. Is you're happy in what you're doing.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Ethan says, what pride means to me is how you present yourself and how you can be yourself out loud and loving others who they are, uh, no matter from what background. Everyone is welcome. Yeah, thank you, Ethan. Anyone else? Give you one more moment to share, if you would. Okay, well, thank you again for sharing your thoughts this morning. Pastor G and I are going to share some of our thoughts. We each came up with a list of some questions and talking points that we want to try to bring together. And it's just going to happen organically. We're not going to go through the list or anything like that particularly. We're just going to dialogue back and forth. If you have a question or you want to follow up on any of the comments that we make, please let us know. You can wave a hand and interrupt us. If you're on Facebook, we'll be checking that periodically. Same with Zoom. If you want to unmute and interrupt us and enter into the conversation, we invite you to do so. This is not a two-person dialogue, it's an everybody dialogue. So I want to begin, however, with kind of a historical perspective on what Pride is and how it all began. So I just open it up to any of you. What do you know about the beginnings of Pride, how it began, and a historical perspective on it? Anybody?
From what I think I know, Pride grew out of a response to the Stonewall Inn situation.
Okay.
Am I right?
What you are? You are. What do you know about the Stonewall?
That it
revolt?
was a gay club before gay clubs were a thing publicly.
Before they were legal in New York
Publicly,
City?
yes, legal, okay. And the police raided Stonewall and they beat up like everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. What was different about, there had been many other raids in gay bars prior to that. What was different is that the patrons fought back this time, and it was violent. They didn't just take it sitting down. They fought back, which lasted for several days. It was 1969 in New York City, a gay bar called the Stonewall Inn. And that riot basically took place as they rioted against the raid and their treatment by the police. The beginnings of Pride were violent and ugly. They were not the balloons and parades and colorful clothing that we think of today. It began as a revolt against mistreatment.
And Bob, if I
Go
could
ahead.
add, yeah, that the first people to resist were trans women of color, particularly Marsha P. Johnson.
Right.
So there's still a lot of racism within the LGBTQIA family. But isn't it interesting that the ones who led us, the true heroes, were the most discriminated against? I find that incredible and
Absolutely.
awe-inspiring. Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to add that.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm checking Facebook. There are some people checking in on us
Yeah.
and telling us that Stonewall was the witch hunt of the time. It absolutely was, but it wasn't alone. There were many other witch hunts that were going on. What made the difference is that they fought back. And so on that June the 28th, 1969, that began a 4 or 5 day riot that lasted until July the 2nd, however many days that is. And on the next year, 1970, in remembrance of that day, that revolt was the first Pride Parade in New York City, as well as in Chicago, in Los Angeles, and San Francisco. There may have been one or two others, but on June the 28th, 1970, the year anniversary of the Stonewall riot, was when the first Pride parades took place. What were they about? Why did they have a parade?
Got some good feedback in the Facebook chat from Jeffrey and Ethan about the history there as well.
Right.
The first one was, to my understanding, the first Pride was to celebrate the fact that they were no longer in that particular location being beaten up, assaulted, and it was a recognition of who they were, being free to do that.
Yes.
And I use free in quotes, but yeah, it wasn't, hey, look at me, I'm special, I'm colorful. It was more like, I'm alive, and we're here, we've been here.
Right. Ethan asked what the name of the trans lady was, and you mentioned her a minute ago, Marsha P. Johnson. There, you got the answer there. Trying to catch up on Facebook, sorry.
Oh, good.
Good interaction today, thank you for that. So the point of that first Pride parade was a recognition that we are who we are. We're not going to back down anymore. We're going to be out. We're going to be proud of who we are, and no longer let you shame us into hiding in places where we can't be seen. So it's important to remember that, because I think in today, Pride being more of a celebration, we forget the ugly beginnings of why it was even necessary to have that parade, and why it was necessary for us this year at our Pride celebration to have armed guards just for protection, because it's not over. The way that people act and treat LGBTQIA folks continues to this day. And so they needed a safe place. That's why we had some armed guards this year. So why don't you, Pastor G, why don't you prompt the next part of our discussion with whatever you want to go to?
Sure. What I was reflecting on is, we have Pride Sunday once a year, and it's such a profound impact, not only for unity, but for the community. And I was thinking about, how can we remain that relevant in our inclusive love throughout the rest of the year? Not just focus on LGBTQIA, but other minorities and outliers in the community. How do we continue to do that as unity? And I guess that's where I wanted to jump off into that. How do we show up for people like we do in June on Pride Sunday, but throughout the year?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I think it is important for us to remember that having a one-day celebration is not enough. Having a two-Sunday discussion is not enough. That if we're going to be here for folks, we need to be here every day of the year, and provide a safe haven, provide a place where you can be completely yourself. Well, what else can we do?
Ethan says volunteer at more events.
Okay, thank you, Ethan.
Yes, we need to be more visible in the community. And in the past, we attended the multicultural festival, and we need to do things like that again.
Okay, thank you.
A great point. I think too, I remember last Sunday looking around and noticing how many straight people we're there
Mm-hmm.
not to just be there, but to engage with other people. And I think that, and they did it without saying, have you been baptized? What's your home church? Do you
Right.
read scripture every day? But just who are you? What's your name? I love your outfit. I'm glad you're here. Maybe more intentionally doing that, like Sarah Jane said, in other settings.
Just be decent humans to each other.
I know, feel like we got to spell it out now, though, Bob.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to make an assumption here. We haven't discussed this yet, but my assumption is that your personal perspective on pride may be a little bit different from mine uh, as a gay man opposed to a straight man. Um, and there are others who might bring different perspectives, but let's make it personal for a moment. Um, what what does pride mean to you more on a personal level as a gay person?
And you're right. I don't think you can line 10 gay or lesbian, bisexual people up and you get 10 different answers. Um, I think for me personally, pride is just a time to reunite with my people and have those friendships and those relationships reaffirmed and to celebrate in the midst of all the discrimination. But I tell you what, just Dominique, myself, and Josiah sitting out there, um, it means more when you have a child to me
Mm,
because I realize that
yeah.
every person Josiah interacts with, he understands the sacredness of that individual and who they are and doesn't question why they should be there or etc. So
Yeah.
he has really expanded my understanding of pride and really civil rights across the board because I want Josiah to grow up not caring how somebody has to look to be loved or accepted. So it's growing and growing, Bob, for me.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Jeffrey says people need to become more involved and become a pioneer, but also the LGBTQ community needs not to have labels. The discrimination of the LGBTQ community is destroying what we've worked for. Okay. So my perspective is as a straight person. Um, who was not very familiar for many years with what Pride was about. I'm an outsider. That's not my family, um, or it's not my natural family. I'll put it that way. And so, as an outsider, it has become important to me because I want to support my gay siblings. I want to affirm them. I want them to know that I care about them and love them. I want them to know. Um, for me, it's a step outside of a comfort zone, or at least it was at the beginning. Yeah, I don't feel that discomfort anymore. But it was an intentional step toward uh, my siblings uh, that are different from my natural being. Does that make any sense? And to
Yes,
anybody?
it does. Yes, it does.
I felt like it was necessary, and I guess that pushes me towards uh, the pastoral part of this. Um, I said this was going to be a pastoral reflection on pride. So, as pastors, um, not as personal people now, as pastors, why is it important? And is there any biblical uh, guidance for us on this?
Bob, I think it's important for pastors um, to show these things that because so many people have been hurt and thrown away because of pastors in the past that are not open and realize people are people.
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's important on many levels as a pastor. I think one of the main levels is continuing education.
right. Yeah,
That the pastor, as a servant of the people, should always be stretching, learning, um, expanding our boundaries, and being uncomfortable in many ways. And I think pride invites that on many levels. Just because I'm a gay man doesn't mean I've seen and heard everything there is in the LGBT community. So I'll be honest, there's times I'm uncomfortable,
yeah, yeah. I'm
but
sure.
I don't see that as bad. I see that as something I've not experienced yet.
Exactly.
So that continued education is major. And I think the symbolism of having, quote unquote, the heads of the church present, touching people on the back, you know,
Yeah,
patting the children, not so much in a politician way to get a vote, but to say, you are loved.
yeah.
I'm taking nothing from you. You're not tithing. I'm just glad you're here. So that witness of this altruistic love, this non-self indulged love is important.
If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw on your Facebook page a picture of a church sign about pride
Right.
just in the last few days. You
Yeah.
want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So that it was a First Baptist Church of Pendleton, South Carolina. And they had, the classic big sign out front, brick sign. And they said, Happy Pride, we're celebrating with you. And it just struck me how courageous that was,
Mm.
but also how right that was. That
Yes.
it was just the right thing to do, to say, to be. And I know a lot of people who would pass that sign and be angry, but I know plenty more who probably thought, wow, if I ever go back to church, I'm going to go to this one.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful witness.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very, very special.
Jeffrey says that 1 Peter 3:8 calls us to be like-minded, sympathetic, compassionate, and humble, and that Romans um, encourages accepting those with uh, weaker faith without quarreling. Um, acceptance, remember that acceptance doesn't mean convincing uh, compromising our own values or allowing negative influences in our lives. It's about extending love and grace while maintaining healthy boundaries. Um, so thank you for that input from Jeffrey. Um, Having a hard time keeping up with Facebook. Y'all are blowing it up this morning. Thank you. So glad that you've joined this conversation, and we're pleased that you've joined us in every facet of this. Um, so yeah, I think it's extremely important. For me, the biblical guidance is from Jesus himself, who went out of his way to embrace those who were marginalized in his society. Um, Even though there's nothing in the New Testament that specifically calls out gay people, um, and Jesus' comment on that, but just the way he treated those who were marginalized, uh, whether they were lepers or they were females or they were slaves, those who were pushed aside by society, Jesus went out of his way to embrace them. And I think for me, going uh, to out of our way to embrace the LGBTQ community, the Black community, any part of the community that is being marginalized, those who are handicapped for some reason. Um, we stand on the side of those who are least uh, lifted up in society. I think that's part of our calling as followers of Jesus.
You know, you say that, Bob, it really sparked something in me. When Jesus did these radical, what were considered radical outreaches, he never tried to convince people around him that what he was doing was right. He just did it.
He just did it. It
He
was
just did
just
it.
part of the nature of who
Yes.
Jesus was. Yeah. Why don't you take the lead from here for a second
Sure.
and get us going to the next part of our discussion?
Sure. So, one of my additional questions was, what if the Bible had evidence that Jesus was gay, or that Jesus was bisexual? And if me just mentioning that makes you uncomfortable, that's good, because would it change how you thought of Jesus? Would it, what's that uncomfortableness about? And if you don't want to share that publicly, that's okay. But there's an assumption that even though Jesus never had a mate, that Jesus was straight, but it could have been different. And so I wonder, for the people who identify as LGBTQ, what would that mean to you if there was evidence suggesting that? And for our straight allies, what would that mean to you?
Yeah. Here's a man who spent 3 years hanging out with 12 men.
Right, Bob.
It's certainly worth pondering. There's no evidence about Jesus' sexuality one way or the other, actually. But to your point, just the assumption
Mhm.
that he was straight says something about our society and the way that we approach Scripture.
Pastor G,
Yes.
straight people tend to assume everybody's straight unless they
Right.
are led to believe otherwise.
Right. You
Oh,
hit
but he
me.
was also white and had blonde hair, right? And blue eyes.
True.
Right.
True.
Oh, man. Ethan says it wouldn't make any difference to me. I know he loves me and all of us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Ethan.
I don't have any proof, but I have a feeling that Jesus, in some way, was in the heart of every person all along the scale and understood what they went through.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you, Carol. What else you got for us, G?
Okay, yeah, they didn't nibble much on that. Go back to my tackle box.
Well, some things you just need to ponder and keep it in your head. I
Right.
think it says a lot about us
Sure.
that we didn't want to talk about that a whole lot.
Yep. Okay, so we'll switch gears here. It would be important for us, unity and as this family, and for those who are joining on Facebook, we have no membership. If you attend, whether it's after the service or during the service, you're part of the family. So with that understanding, for the unity family, is it important for us to maybe invite the Burmese congregation to join us next year? or to maybe invite different congregations who we're not really sure where they fall, if those exist in Owensboro, to join us?
Mhm.
Or is it our role to continue to do this as the bastions of inclusion?
I think for me, I think it's a great idea to include anybody who would like to be a part of it. And we do have other churches in Owensboro who have booths at the Pride picnic. So they are out and seen as well. We're not the only ones. The Burmese congregation might be a little bit of a stretch simply because of the language barriers.
Sure.
We are going to be having a joint service with them next month, the first next month, or well, 1st of August, actually. It's still June, isn't it? The 1st of August, to celebrate the sale of our church building to them. By the way, a few weeks ago, we mentioned that the Burmese had bought the building, but did not mention at that point that they wanted us to stay in the building. And someone on Facebook asked the question, was that what's going to happen with Pride? So we were able to tell them then that Pride will continue just like it's been, because part of the arrangement is that we will continue to occupy the building and share the building with them well into the future. But that brings up something that happened during the picnic this year for me. I had, I think, 4 different people, it may have been 5, 4 different people that mentioned the church sale and asked what was going on with it. They didn't know that it had been sold yet. And one of them said, the first comment that they made to me, and rather than asking a question, they said, well, if I had the money, I'd buy this building so y'all could stay here. And I told them what had happened, that Jen Emanuel had bought it with the understanding that we continue to share this space. They started crying. It was such a moving thing for them to know that God had worked that out in such a powerful way, that we will continue to be the host of Pride, because we are not displaced from the building. And I had another person who said, well, it's a miracle, when they heard what had happened. It was a powerful testimony to folks, hearing how God had worked that out so that we can stay in this building.
And Bob, I had a few conversations along the same lines, and people were just ecstatic that we were going to get to stay and everything continue as it is and as it has been.
Yes, thank you.
And I had some people that were really surprised that the Burmese were the one to do it.
Yeah.
And that they were able to do it. And that just brings up one other point. We're talking about inclusion, and that reaches out beyond LGBTQ.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking of the pastor before you, Lori. She brought in over a series of weeks as many different denominations, ways of worship as she could find. Some came in from out of town, and we had get-togethers to learn about them. And she would put on our sign out back, she put out there one day or 1 week, Happy Ramadan, and she got backlash from that. So it's an inclusion of all people.
Yes, thank you. Ethan says he does have a question. Ethan was baptized years ago, but would like to be baptized again, and ask if we do that. The answer, Ethan, is yes. Talk to me after we get done. message me online and we'll talk about it a little bit further, perhaps even a phone call if you'd like. And we'll certainly figure out a way to work that out. Jeffrey mentions that the hardest part of coming out for him was his religion. You're not alone in that, Jeffrey. There are many, many of the LGBTQ folks, which brings me back to why it is so incredibly important for churches to counter all the mistreatment that has been laid on so many people. My heart breaks to know that my religion has been the cause of so much pain and injury to my LGBTQ siblings. It's one of the things that keeps me motivated, that as many of my peers are retiring, I'm not ready to do that yet, because it's just part of my heart to be here for my my friends, my brothers and sisters, not just the LGBTQ community, but the other marginalized communities as well. It's my calling, I guess, as you could say. Okay. Anything else, G?
No, I think we had a great discussion today.
I think so too. Anybody else have a question or a comment that you'd like to make before we sign off for today?
Yeah,
Thank
Bob.
you. Great comments and discussion with us today. So glad that you have joined us.
Bob,
Yes.
Mr. Roy. I'm probably one of the oldest here, if not. And the progression of the gay situation from the time, like when I was in high school, how gays were looked upon
Yeah.
through the years and where it is today, it has come a long way.
Yeah.
Myself, it has come a long way.
Sure.
And my family, I know, like blacks. My mother, she didn't even want a black around, until her neighbors started helping her, and she found out they're good people too, So we have to just integrate with each other, enjoy each other, and fellowship with each other, and we find out we're all good people, and God loves us all.
There's a lot to be said for just getting to know each other.
And Bob, I just want to put out there to you and Gator, hopefully, first of all, thank y'all for doing what you do, because had I had a pastor like either one of you when I was in my teens and 20s, I would have been able to accept who I was sooner and have stayed in the church. As it was, I was out of church because I knew I wasn't being accepted until after I came out and found church here in Owensboro. And if it wasn't for you, Bob, I wouldn't be in church today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you again for your participation and your comments, your tuning in. We're glad that you did today. We will get back to some more Bible study next week. Although I think we touched upon a lot of Bible today too. Uh, Thank you again. God bless you all. Take care.